I was always the background daughter. Quiet, convenient, easy to forget. Emma was the star. Valedictorian, daddy's sunshine, mama's pride. So when she came home heartbroken and told them I needed to leave in 75 hours, they just agreed. Over mashed potatoes in the house I refinanced, restructured, and saved from the bank. I did not cry. I pulled out the deed. Y'all got 29 hours. After that, it is the police. Emma's smirk died. Mama gusped. Daddy's fork hit the plate. Reckoning served cold. The steam from the mashed potatoes curled up into my face, thick with butter and lorries and the smell of betrayal. The candles Mama lit for ambience flickered against the plastic runners she refused to take off the carpet, like we were in some commercial for a perfect family instead of the mess we really were. Outside, our Atlanta block hummed with bass from a car creeping slow, somebody playing old 90s R&B, but in that dining room all I heard was the scrape of silverware and my own heartbeat. Nia, baby, what you doing? Mama finally whispered, voice trembling, church hat still on from morning service, like if she kept it on, God might fix this for her. I sucked my teeth, not loud, just enough to keep from screaming. I am setting boundaries, Mama. Remember those? I kept my tone flat, my corporate voice hiding the shake in my chest. Emma leaned back in her chair, lace front laid, bronze skin glowing under the chandelier like she was on some reality show. Girl, stop being dramatic, she said, switching into that sweet fake tone she used for Instagram lives. We just saying it is time for you to grow up. You been in this house forever. It is not healthy. She looked at Daddy for backup. He cleared his throat, eyes glued to the gravy boat. Nia, we just want peace in this house. You always so tense lately. Tense. That word again. My jaw clenched so tight I felt it in my temples. Peace is when people pay the bills they benefit from, I said. Peace is not kicking out the person who saved your house because Emma got her heart broken and needs a free spa. Emma sucked her teeth and gave me a slow up and down like I was something tracked in off the street. Bless your heart, she said, smile sharp. You really think this house is yours just because you shuffled some papers? Something in me snapped, but it was not loud. It was quiet, like a rubber band finally breaking after being stretched too long. I slid the deed all the way to Daddy's plate. Read the shuffled papers, Daddy, I said. Look whose name on that line. His fingers shook as he picked it up, bifocals sliding down his nose. Mama leaned over, the scent of her cocoa butter and cheap floral perfume wrapping around us. Emma did not lean. She just watched, eyes narrow like she was already crafting the spin. Daddy's face went slack. Nia Carter, he murmured. Owner. The word hung over the table like smoke. Mama blinked fast, eyes glossing. This must be some misunderstanding, she said. We only signed whatever the bankman told us, so we did not lose the house. We did not know. You did. I cut in, my voice finally dropping the polite edges. The lawyer explained it 3 times. I explained it again in the car. Y'all were just too scared to look me in the eye and call it what it was. You gave me the house because the bank was finna take it, and I was the only one with income steady enough to catch it. Emma laughed once, a short bitter sound. So you think that makes you queen of the castle now? She said. Girl, you been living here rent-free. You are doing too much. You really gone call the police on your own family? I met her gaze. She had always been taller than me, lighter, the kind of caramel that looked good on camera. I was deeper brown, mahogany, edges laid every morning with gel and patience, silk bonnet waiting on my pillow every night. For years I had watched her float while I sank. Tonight I was not sinking. You gave me 75 hours, remember? I said. No discussion, no warning. Just you need to go, Nia. So yes, if y'all still here after 29 hours, I will call the police. And I will not be wrong. Daddy finally pushed his plate away, mashed potatoes untouched. We did not raise you like this, he muttered, hurt and accusation tangled up together. I laughed, but there was no joy in it. No, you raised me to clean up your messes and keep my mouth shut, I said. You raised me to be useful, not loved. This is me retiring from that job. Emma's eyes flashed. You ungrateful, she snapped. All those years Mama and Daddy gave you a roof over your head, and now you throwing them out like trash because I asked you to get your own apartment? Make it make sense. I could feel Mama's stare trying to burn through my resolve. She clasped her hands like she was about to start praying in tongues right there at the table. Nia, God willing and the creek do not rise, we can figure out another way, she said. What happens in this house stays in this house. We do not have to embarrass ourselves with lawyers and police. That was the choice, plain in front of me. Keep quiet, let them pack my life into some tiny apartment I could barely afford so Emma could stretch out in the master bedroom again, or stand on the deed and become the villain in my own family story. The roast chicken smell turned sour in my nose. My tongue felt thick. I remembered every night in that cramped guest room turned office, eyes burning from design work, gospel music humming from my phone while I juggled spreadsheets and final notices. I remembered signing my name on documents that scared me because losing this house scared me more. I am done being the secret sacrifice, I said softly. The locksmith is coming tomorrow at 12:30. I already paid the deposit. Emma's chair screeched back as she jumped up. You had a locksmith scheduled before dinner? She yelled. So this was your little plan? You set us up? Daddy's voice boomed, that old deacon bass shaking the dishes. Nia, he roared. You calling strangers to change locks on your parents? On your own blood? My hands were shaking so bad I had to press them flat to my thighs. I called someone to protect my home, I said. Y'all the ones planning to put me out and sell it like I was never here. Emma grabbed her wine glass and tossed back the last swallow like a shot. You not gon' put me on the street, she said, voice low. I am not going nowhere. She slammed the glass down so hard a crack shot up the side. Red drops splashed onto Mama's good china, staining the little blue flowers. For a second nobody moved. Then Mama whispered, Lord have mercy, under her breath. That was when my phone buzzed on the sideboard, screen lighting up with a notification from my bank app. I glanced at it and felt my stomach flip. A pending withdrawal for several thousand more than my usual mortgage payment, authorized from our joint account. The one Daddy and I shared for house expenses. The one only he and I were supposed to touch. Someone had tried to empty it that afternoon. The choice I thought I was making about boundaries twisted into something uglier. This was not just about respect. Somebody had already tried to rob me blind. I went to bed that night without washing a single dish, lemon pepper and garlic still clinging to the air, my nerves buzzing louder than the cicadas outside. I tied my satin bonnet with fingers that would not stop trembling, rubbed cocoa butter into my elbows like muscle memory, and lay on my back staring at the ceiling of the guest room that had been office, bedroom, and bunker all in one. The walls felt like they were leaning in, listening. I could hear the house breathing, pipes groaning, floorboards settling, the faint hum of somebody's trap playlist drifting from a passing car. Under it all, I heard Mama and Daddy's low voices in the master bedroom, then Emma's higher pitch, the three of them whispering like kids gossiping in a church pew. Every word was muffled, but I knew who they were talking about. The quiet daughter who finally dared to speak. Sleep would not come, so I did what I always did when my anxiety tried to eat me alive. I opened my laptop and pulled up my accounts. The pending withdrawal glared at me, bold and smug. It had been requested that afternoon, while I had been at work presenting a campaign to a client, wearing my blazer and my best corporate voice, pretending my home life was not falling apart. I clicked through the transaction details, my chest tight. Emma's email was listed as the contact on the request. I stared at the screen, heat rising from my collarbone to my ears. She had not just tried to kick me out. She had tried to take the last bit of cushion I had, the money that stood between me and the same foreclosure I had already outrun. I screenshotted everything and sent it to my lawyer with a quick message. My lawyer, Miss Daniels, was an older black woman with sharp cheekbones, locks pulled into a bun, and a voice that could slice through nonsense like a hot knife. She had walked me through the refinance 2.5 years ago. She knew my whole financial life better than my own parents did. Within minutes, she replied that she would call me first thing in the morning, told me not to authorize anything, and reminded me that the joint account technically belonged to me now, too, since I funded it. I closed the laptop and pressed the heels of my hands into my eyes until I saw sparks. Part of me wanted to march into the master bedroom right then, fling the door open, and lay the receipts on their pillows. But another part of me, the tired part, the part that had spent too many years being the bigger person, knew that would only lead to more yelling, more gaslighting, More chances for them to twist this around until I was the bad guy again. So I stayed in my room and let the house absorb my anger. Morning came soft and gray. Atlanta humidity already creeping through the cracked window as gospel floated faint from somebody's radio down the block. Usually Saturdays meant cleaning with Mama, Fabuloso in the bucket, bleach in the bathroom, Mary Mary on the speakers, plastic gloves snapping while we scrubbed like salvation was in the baseboards. Not today. Today the house smelled like cold chicken and uneaten mashed potatoes, and the sharp metal scent of dread. I stepped into the hallway, and nearly bumped into Daddy. He was in his old tank top and sweats, cologne heavy like he had somewhere to be. He looked right past me. "Morning," I said. My voice sounded small in the narrow hall. He grunted, not quite a word, and moved to squeeze by. When I did not step aside fast enough, he gave me a look I had never seen on his face directed at me. A mix of disappointment and something close to disgust. "You really calling a locksmith?" he asked finally, eyes on the floor. "I already did," I answered. "He will be here at 12:30. Saying it out loud made my stomach twist. Daddy shook his head. "You gon' regret this, girl," he said. "Blood is blood." Blood did not stop y'all from trying to put me out. I shot back before I could catch myself. He flinched like I had slapped him, then walked away. In the kitchen, Mama was wrapping her good china in newspaper, lips pressed tight. The big pot she always used for Sunday collard sat empty in the sink. Water spots dried or maybe just ignored. She did not look up when I walked in, just kept packing. "Morning," I said again. "You need any help?" She gave a humorless little chuckle. "You done helped enough," she said. The words hit harder than I wanted to admit. "We do not know where we going yet. Your daddy talking about staying with his cousin out in Decatur. Emma say she can squeeze us in her apartment for a while. It is gon' be cramped." There was an opening in her tone, a tiny space where apology might have fit. Instead she slipped judgment through. "You really comfortable putting your mama out like a stranger?" she asked quietly, finally glancing at me. Her eyes were rimmed red. "I am not putting Mama out," I said, voice shaking. "I am putting out people who tried to steal my money and my house." I told her about the withdrawal request, about Emma's email on the transaction. Mama froze, one of her plates halfway into the box. "That do not sound like my baby," she said slowly. "You sure you reading it right?" "I am not stupid, Mama," I snapped, anger flaring through the hurt. She flinched, then straightened her spine, slipping into that church mother posture. "Watch your tone," she said. "I am still your mama." "And I am still your daughter," I replied. "The one who paid the mortgage when the bank was knocking. The one who skipped vacations to keep the lights on. But suddenly I am the villain." She sucked her teeth, soft but sharp. "You always holding on to things," she muttered. "You do not know how to let stuff go." That was when Miss Daniels called, her name flashing on my screen like a lifeline. I stepped out onto the front porch, the morning air thick and sticky, the porch boards creaking under my bare feet. Kids shouted down the street, somebody's grill already smoking even though it was barely 10:30. I pressed the phone to my ear and listened as Miss Daniels explained that the attempted withdrawal could be flagged as fraud, that my ownership of the house was solid, that legally I had every right to evict any adult who was not on the deed. "Emotionally it is messy," she said, her tone gentler. "But you are not crazy, Nia. You are not cruel. You are enforcing boundaries you should have had years ago." Her words steadied me, but they did not soften the ache in my chest. When I hung up and turned back toward the door, I saw Emma sitting on the good porch chair like it was her throne, silk robe slung open over a tight tank and shorts, toes freshly done, satin bonnet tied just so. She must have slipped out the side door while I was focused on the phone. "So you got your little lawyer on speed dial, huh?" she said, one eyebrow raised. I crossed my arms. "You tried to drain the house account," I said flatly. "You really thought I would not notice?" She rolled her eyes. "It is Daddy's account," she said. "He told me I could use it to help us all transition, since you want to act brand new. I was just moving money around. Grown folks' business. Something you do not understand." Rage flared so hot behind my eyes I had to blink hard. "I am the only one paying into that account," I said. "You moving my money around." She shrugged like theft was a minor inconvenience. "You owe us," she said. You've been living here off them discounted bills for years. You could at least help us land on our feet if you gon' throw us out. Daddy always said you too tight with money. My laugh came out broken. I owe you. I repeated. For what? For leaving me here to manage everything while you chase palm trees and post likes? For being the backup plan when your fairy tale fell apart? Emma's smile slipped finally. You jealous, that is all, she said, but her voice had lost a little of its shine. You always been jealous. The word stabbed through me, not because it was true, but because it was the lazy lie they had used to dismiss my pain since childhood. I am exhausted, not jealous, I said. And I am done paying for your mistakes. The locksmith arrived right on time, a stocky man in a faded falcon's cap, tool bag swinging. He glanced between Emma and me, picking up on the tension the way black folks do when we walk into a room mid-argument. Morning, ma'am, he said carefully. You the one called about the locks? Before I could answer, Emma jumped up, slipping into her corporate voice so fast it made my head spin. Actually, there has been a misunderstanding, she said, smiling wide. I am the homeowner. We will not need your services after all. The man looked confused, eyes flicking to me, taking in my crossed arms, my bare face, my old HBCUT, then back to Emma's polished nails and smile. Something in his expression hardened. I need to see some identification in the work order, he said. Whoever name on that is who I am listening to. My heart thudded as I pulled my ID and the printed confirmation from Miss Daniels' email. Emma tried to talk over me, voice getting shriller, insisting she was the real daughter, that I was playing games. The neighbors across the street slowed their car, watching. An older lady watering her plants 2 doors down paused, hose dripping onto the concrete. The locksmith cleared his throat. Ma'am, he said to me. Unia Carter? Yes, sir, I answered. He nodded. Then that is all I need. He stepped past Emma toward the door. She moved to block him, eyes flashing. You do not get to do this, she screamed, dropping the pretty act. You think changing locks make you better than us? You think this house gon' love you back? Her words hit something raw in me. For a moment I hesitated. That tiny pause was all she needed. You see how she treating her own family? Emma shouted loud, turning toward the street like a performer who had found her audience. Y'all seeing this? She calling folks to put us out. A curtain twitched across the street. The lady with the hose shook her head sadly. Shame rose hot and heavy in my throat. For the first time since I slid that deed across the table, doubt slammed into me like a fist. Maybe I had gone too far. Maybe I was doing too much. As the locksmith started unscrewing the first lock, Daddy stepped onto the porch, face gray. That is enough, he said. We leaving? He did not look at me when he said it. That hurt more than any shouted insult. He turned to Emma. Go pack your things. She glared at me like she wanted to claw my face, then stomped back inside, heels pounding against the wood like gunshots. Mama slipped out behind him, eyes wet, clutching a small suitcase and her Bible like that would be enough to carry her through. She stopped at the top of the steps and looked back at me, lips parted like she was about to say something important, something that could fix at least a piece of this. Then she closed her mouth, shook her head and followed Daddy down. My victory tasted like ash. I had chosen myself, but standing there on that porch while the neighborhood watched my family drag suitcases to the curb, I felt like the worst version of myself. And somewhere in the back of my mind a darker thought whispered, if they hate me this much already, what else are they willing to do? The house was almost silent after they left, the kind of quiet that made every creak sound like a warning. I walked through the rooms like I was touring a stranger's home, fingers grazing the plastic on the living room couch, eyes catching on the faded church fan left on the coffee table, the one with the black Jesus and the funeral home ad on the back. The scent of Emma's perfume still clung to the hallway, sweet and artificial, layered over Daddy's aftershave and Mama's hair grease. I should have felt free. Instead I felt like I had survived a storm, only to realize I was standing on a cliff. Miss Daniels came by that afternoon with a folder of documents, her locks tied up in a bright scarf, her presence filling the kitchen with calm authority. We sat at the table where the fight had started, the candle stubs still crooked in their holders. She slid forms across the wood, explaining the formal eviction process, what would happen if they refused to stay gone, what rights I had now that the locks were changed. Her voice was steady but her eyes were kind. "You did not create this mess," she said, tapping the papers. "You just stopped letting it swallow you." I nodded, not trusting my voice. When she left, the sun was bleeding out across the sky, painting the block in gold and orange. Kids rode bikes up and down the street, tires skidding on the cracked pavement. Somewhere down the block, somebody had switched from 90s R&B to trap, bass rattling glass. In the living room, my phone buzzed nonstop. Texts from cousins asking what was going on, church folks sending passive-aggressive prayers, unknown numbers leaving voicemails that started with, "Now I do not know the full story, but..." I silenced it and threw it onto the couch. For the first time in days, I let myself breathe without bracing for the next hit. That piece lasted all of maybe 20 minutes. A heavy knock rattled the front door, 3 sharp bangs. My heart jumped into my throat. The new lock gleamed in the twilight. I peeped through the peephole and saw 2 uniformed officers on the porch, one black, one white, hands resting near their belts. My stomach dropped. I opened the door but kept the chain on. "Evening, ma'am," the black officer said, voice neutral. "We got a call about a domestic situation? Claims of unlawful eviction?" Behind them on the sidewalk, Emma stood with her arms folded, face blotchy like she had forced some tears for effect. Mama hovered beside her, wringing her hands. Daddy stared at the ground. My pulse roared in my ears. "There is no domestic situation," I said, forcing my tone calm, pulling on my corporate voice like armor. "This is my home. I have legal paperwork. They left earlier today." The white officer narrowed his eyes. "Ma'am, step outside so we can talk," he said. Every black instinct in my body screamed no, but I unlatched the chain and stepped onto the porch, hands visible, posture non-threatening. The block had gone quiet again. Curtains shifted. The lady with the hose was back, now standing on her porch, arms crossed. "She changed the locks on us," Emma said, voice cracking, stepping closer like she wanted to stand behind the officers for protection. "This is our family home. I grew up here. She is trying to put us on the street. We just needed time, and she called some man to lock us out." "Ma'am, what is your name?" the black officer asked me. "Nia Carter," I said. "I am the owner of this property. I have the deed inside." "My daddy's name on that deed too," Emma cut in. That was a lie, but it landed like a slap. Mama sniffled. "Officer, we just want to get our things," she said. "We do not want no trouble." My head spun. They had already moved most of their stuff. What else did they want? I ran through the options in my mind. If the officers believed Emma, I could end up in handcuffs on my own porch. If I pushed too hard, this could turn ugly in ways I could not control. "I will get the paperwork," I said quietly. Inside, my hand shook so bad I fumbled the folder twice before gripping it tight. I returned to the porch and handed it to the black officer. He took his time reading, lips moving slightly. The white officer watched me like I might bolt. "This looks in order," the black officer finally said, glancing at his partner. "She is the sole owner. The eviction notice is here too, dated yesterday." He turned to Emma. "Ma'am, did she physically remove you from the property or threaten you?" Emma's eyes flashed, then went glossy. "She threatened to call y'all," she said. "Said she would have us dragged out. That is a threat." The white officer sighed. "That is not exactly what unlawful eviction means," he muttered. "Look," Emma said, voice rising. "This house been in our family for decades. She is just mad because I told her she needed to move out and get a life. She always been sensitive." There it was again, the old script. My throat burned. The black officer flipped another page, then looked at me. "Miss Carter, is there any compromise you willing to make?" he asked. "Let them in to get whatever they say is left, maybe give them a day or two?" The question was simple. The weight behind it was not. If I said yes, I opened the door for more chaos, more disrespect, another shot at my accounts, maybe even a squatter situation that would take months to untangle. If I said no, I knew exactly how the neighborhood would frame this. The ungrateful daughter so cold she called the law on her own mama. Emma caught my hesitation and pounced. "See," she said. "She do not care about nobody but herself. She is not right in the head. Daddy told me she be sitting up in that room all night, lights off, staring at the wall. I think she need help." That lie stole my breath. I felt the white officer's eyes flick over me again, this time with a new kind of scrutiny. Crazy black woman putting her parents out. Dangerous. Unstable. I thought about all the nights I had sat up working, the only light my laptop screen, earbuds pumping slow jam so I would not disturb them. How easily that truth bent into something ugly when Emma tilted it. The black officer cleared his throat. We cannot force her to let you back in, he told Emma. Legally, she is in the right. Relief flooded me so fast my knees went weak. Then he added, but we do recommend y'all handle this through the courts or with a mediator, not by calling us. This could have gone a lot worse. His meaning was clear. We all knew it. Emma's face twisted. So y'all just gone let her do this to us? She demanded. After everything my parents done for her? That is wild. Ma'am, that is a civil matter, the white officer said. Our part here is done. They handed back the folder and left, walking down the steps while Emma stared at me like she wished me dead. The squad car pulled away. The block exhaled. Emma stepped closer to the porch, voice low now, sugar gone. This is not over, she said. You think you won, but you just started a war you not built for. You do not know who you messing with. She turned to Mama and Daddy. Come on. We gon' fix this. They walked away together, a little unit, Mama clutching Emma's arm, Daddy's shoulders hunched. None of them looked back. I stood in the doorway, fingers still curled around the folder, heart hammering against my ribs. On paper I had survived the challenge. In reality I felt gutted. Their call had almost turned my own protection against me. If that black officer had not read those papers carefully, if his patience had been an inch thinner, if Emma's performance had landed a little harder, everything could have gone sideways. That was the moment I understood something ugly and crystal clear. My family was willing to use every system that scared us growing up as a weapon against me. And if they could twist cops, neighbors, and church folks into believing their version, what else could they twist? For a while after they left, I just stood there with the door half open, the Atlanta heat creeping in, the smell of somebody's frying fish drifting up the block. My hands finally unclenched and the folder slipped onto the side table, paper spilling. I stared at the deed with my name on it, the eviction notice, the refinance forms, all the proof that I was not crazy. But proof had not stopped them from calling me that. Proof had not kept them from dialing the people who could have taken my body out of this house in handcuffs or worse. Something inside me sank all the way down, past anger, past hurt, into a quiet place that felt like the bottom of a pool. Down there things were clearer. Down there I could see all the way back. Back to the first time Daddy forgot my birthday but made a whole production for Emma's. Back to Mama telling me not to fix my face when Emma claimed my ideas as hers. Back to the foreclosure letters I hid so they would not see how bad it had gotten, because I did not want them to look at each other with shame the way they had when the lights got cut off that one time. I had taken on their fear, their bills, their secrets. In return, they had taken my silence and carved a story out of it where Emma was the sun and I was just some planet lucky to orbit her. Standing in that open doorway, sweat prickling my neck, I realized something the lawyer could not put in a folder. If I kept trying to win their approval, I would lose myself. They had already shown me who they were when faced with my boundaries. My choice now was not between being loved or being alone. It was between being used or being free. I closed the door slowly and slid the new deadbolt into place. The click sounded like a punctuation mark at the end of a chapter. Then I did something I had been too scared to do since I moved back in. I turned on music in the middle of the day, loud. Not low enough to be considerate. Loud enough that the bass vibrated through the walls. I put on 90s R&B, the songs that used to play while Mama cleaned on Saturdays, and let them fill the empty space. The house did not protest. It just held the sound. In the days that followed, I threw myself into reclaiming every corner they had made me feel like a guest in. I pulled the plastic off the living room furniture and tossed it, the sticky crinkle finally gone. I took down the heavy curtains that kept the sunlight out to save on air conditioning, and let the Georgia sun pour in, warm and unforgiving. I scrubbed the baseboards with bleach and Fabuloso, gospel humming from my phone, the way Mama had taught me, but this time the ritual was for me. At night I oiled my scalp and tied my bonnet, not because anyone might walk in and judge me, but because that was how I took care of myself. Little by little, the house stopped echoing with their voices and started picking up mine. A week later, an envelope showed up in the mail, No return address but Mama's careful loopy handwriting on the front. My fingers hesitated at the edge of the flap. Before, that hesitation would have been full of hope. Maybe this time it is an apology, maybe this time she heard me. Now it was just curiosity. I opened it over the kitchen sink, in case the words inside felt messy. The letter was neat, 2 pages of smooth sentences about how they forgave me. That phrase hit my eyes like an insult dressed up for Sunday service. Forgave me. As if I had sinned. As if standing up for myself, for the house, for the years I bled into this foundation was some crime that needed absolution. They said Emma had just been trying her best. That she was going through a lot. That as the younger sister I should understand and be more flexible. They wrote that the apartment was small and noisy. That Daddy's back hurt from the couch. That they missed the quiet of the old house. They ended with, "We still love you, Nia. Even if we do not understand you anymore. No apology. No ownership." Just a benediction over the narrative where I was the wayward child, and they were the long-suffering saints. I read it twice, my chest strangely calm. Then I folded it along the creases and dropped it gently into the trash. Not out of anger, not as some dramatic declaration, just as a choice. I did not need their version of love if it came with amnesia about what they had done. I did not need to keep swallowing their story about me when I had finally started writing my own. Months eased by. I turned the old master bedroom into my room, painting the walls a soft gray that made my skin look rich, and the morning light feel kind. I hung one photo on the wall. Me on a hiking trail outside the city, arms wide, sweat on my brow, smile real. I converted the guest room back into an office, but this time it was not cramped. I bought a standing desk, a good chair, a plant I remembered to water. Business picked up. Clients loved my designs. Some nights I worked late with trap low in the background, my fingers flying over the keyboard, my spirit light. I started inviting friends over for dinner. People who had sat with me on couches in my 20s while I cried over unpaid bills and family drama. We ate lemon pepper wings and baked mac and cheese, drank sweet tea out of mismatched glasses, laughed loud. Music floated out the open windows, joining the block's soundtrack. One humid evening, I hosted a small cookout in the backyard. The grill hissed as my boy Malik, self-proclaimed grill master, an actual decent cook, flipped burgers and hot links, swearing nobody else could touch his tongs. Lorries and smoke filled the air. Kids from up the block danced to the playlist blasting from a Bluetooth speaker. Grown folks doing line dances to Before I Let Go, like it was a family reunion. For the first time in years, the yard felt like joy instead of obligation. As the sky shifted from gold to deep blue, string lights I had hung myself blinked on, bathing everything in a soft glow. I stood on the porch for a second just taking it in, the laughter, the plates piled high with yams and cornbread. The way my friends moved through my space like they belonged, because they did. My chest tightened, but not with pain. With something like gratitude. This was my house. My life. Built on my work, my choices. No one could redraw that truth. That was when the knock came at the front door. It was not loud, not threatening. Just 3 soft taps, like the person on the other side was not sure they were welcome. The music in the yard kept thumping. Nobody else heard it. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, and walked through the hallway that used to be lined with family photos, now holding art I actually liked. At the door, I paused, hand hovering over the knob, spirit suddenly tuned like an antenna. My gut whispered that whatever waited on the other side was not here to destroy me this time. I opened it. Mama stood on the porch, alone, hair wrapped in a simple scarf instead of a church hat. Eyes tired but clearer than I remembered. She held a foil-covered pie dish in both hands like an offering. The smell of sweet potato drifted up, cinnamon and nutmeg wrapping around us. Behind her, the block went on as usual. Cars crawling by, somebody laughing 2 houses down. She shifted from foot to foot. "Hey baby," she said softly. No corporate voice, no church voice. Just Mama's real voice, the one I had not heard since before the foreclosure letters. "I baked too much for this little apartment. Thought maybe you could use some." I looked at the pie, at her, at the house behind me that finally felt like mine. The anger did not slam into me the way I expected. The hurt was still there, but it was not running the show. I saw her not as the judge who had condemned me, but as a woman who had been scared and selfish and wrong. and who had chosen to knock instead of just walking in. That mattered more than the pie. "You can come in," I said. For a little while. Her shoulders dropped like she had been holding her breath for months. She stepped inside, eyes flicking around, taking in the new paint, the bare couches, the absence of her floral curtains. "House looked nice," she murmured. "Different but nice." From the backyard, Malik hollered something about somebody cheating at spades, and a wave of laughter followed. Mama smiled, small but real. "Sound like you got people who love you back there," she said. "I do," I replied. "And they know I own this house." I let the words sit. She did not argue. Instead, she nodded slowly, as if something in her finally clicked. "Good," she said. "You always was the one holding it together. I just did not want to see it." The admission was not an apology, not fully. But it was a crack in the old story, a space where something honest could grow. I could work with that. I took the pie from her hands and carried it toward the kitchen, the smell of sweet potato mixing with charcoal and laughter. As I set it on the counter, I glanced back down the hallway at the front door, now closed, locks gleaming in the dim light. The same door I had once feared would shut behind me at someone else's command now stood as proof that I decided who came in and who did not. The background daughter, the quiet one, the convenient child. They had all lived in a house where her value was measured by how silent she stayed. This version of me lived in a house where her name was on the deed, and her voice was loud enough to fill every room. Outside, someone turned the music up, and the bass rippled through the floorboards like a heartbeat. I smiled, picked up the pie, and walked toward the sound. If this message touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment to let me know you're out there. Tell me where you're watching from. We're building a community here where your story becomes someone else's survival guide. We share the pain and the wins so that the next person knows the way out. Keep your circle tight, protect your energy at all costs, and always remember that you are the architect of your own fate. Every choice counts, so make 'em wise. Much love.